Welcome everyone to Liquid Avatar's webinar on digital wallets and verifiable credentials, the future of online identity. We have an exciting event planned for you. We have two of our strategic partners with us, and we're also going to show you a sneak peek of a pilot that we're working on. So Liquid Avatar, we're focused on empowering consumers to take control of their digital identity. We provide tools that allow them to share what they want, when they want, and with whom that they want to. In order to drive this mass adoption of digital identity, we need to support open standards that drive that inclusivity. And today, we have two of our strategic partners with us today on a panel to talk about digital identity, open standards, and also the pilot that we're running out with. So the first person we have today is Heather Dahl. She's the CEO of Indicio Tech. Indicio is the leader in development and hosting services for decentralized identity. We also have Jay Fischbach. He's the CFO at Vector Health Laboratories. Vector Health Labs is in the business of providing individuals and corporations with the ability to manage their health and safety through active and passive monitoring. All three of these companies are working together to bring the future of digital identity to today. And that is what we're focused on and what we're going to talk about and actually show you a sneak peek on. Welcome, panelists, and thank you very much for attending.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So let's kind of just start and just give everyone just kind of a quick overview and describe the essential roles in a decentralized identity ecosystem. Heather, if you want to start with that one.
Sure. I think the first one that comes to mind would be the holder. That is the usually thought of as the person, but it doesn't have to be a person. It could be a thing. It could be a document. But the holder is the one that has the identity. The issuer is the second role, and that is the organization or entity that provides the verification behind that identity or the actual identity to the holder, and then the verifier. That would be the party that you want to pass the identity along to prove something about yourself, and that is the verifier role.
And what pieces of the technology you generally need to have in place? And can you describe some of those relationships between each of those players?
Yes, you need all three for an ecosystem to work, because after a holder or myself, I receive an identity, I want to use that identity to prove something about myself. And so without the full three, the holder, the issuer, and the verifier, it's hard to have a full, healthy ecosystem where you can exchange your, not only be issued the identity, but also exchange the identity and be verified as well.
Great. Hey, Jay. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I call it a one-handed handshake. If you don't have, if you have issuer that gives the holder the identity and you don't have a verifier to receive that identity to obviously verify it, it's a one-handed handshake. So you need both parts of that.
Great. And so Jay, obviously all three of our companies are working together with one of the solutions, with a solution for you to roll out. Can you describe a little bit of your experience with relationships, you being an issuer, and how you're working with holders and verifiers?
Absolutely. Thanks, RJ. One of the things that Vector is doing, and specifically even today, is issuing COVID credentials. So take the traveler, for example, anyone in Canada going to or coming back from an international destination requires a COVID credential. What we've done is we've enabled real-time PCR tests in our facilities, and using Liquid Avatar and Indicio, we issue them today into a one paper or to some sort of electronic holder container, and very shortly we'll be rolling out a verified COVID credential into a wallet that's supported by Liquid Avatar and Indicio.
That's great. It's exciting. So let's take a step back, because I know there's going to be lots of people with questions, and we do have a Q&A functionality on the webinar. So if you guys like to type in your questions, please do, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. But all of us are heavily involved in all of these different foundations and organizations that are focused on how do we address this problem of inclusivity or bringing everybody online. And it's all focused around open standards and protocols. But it seems that we're kind of approaching it and leveraging that piece, that when we start to build a decentralized identity solution, what is the difference, right? What is a closed ecosystem versus an open ecosystem? And is one better than the other to start with? And then maybe get into a little bit of detail around that. And I'll let Heather go first, and then
Right.
we can jump in.
Where we start is Indicio. Is if you're new to this space and you're saying, well, where do I even begin? We always say, let's start with a closed ecosystem. And by that, we mean the ecosystem is built on interoperable blocks. So when you're ready to open the ecosystem, other can join you. But for the purposes of getting going, define who the holder, the issuer, and the verifier are in a closed ecosystem and build that first. Because that's something that you can do quickly. If you do it right, it can be scalable after you launch it. It's something that you can test. And the main thing is you get going. But by building it, making sure that you can be interoperable, that you meet standards, when you're ready to open up, it's everything set for expansion and scale.
Great. Jay?
Yeah, for us, I mean, I would echo that. For us, the way we looked at it was using some sort of level 1 verified credential with Liquid Avatar, and we knew we needed to keep this a small, tight pilot, because our feeling is as soon as it's this pilot is validated, the rollout beyond is going to be quite vast.
Yeah, and speaking of small, it kind of leads into my next tight pilot. It kind of leads into my next question, right? What are the business considerations, Jay, that you guys need to take into consideration, right, around a decentralized ecosystem and applying it to your business? Can you share some of those examples?
Sure. I think, what are we doing today, and how are we functioning? Today, Vector is involved in sort of 3 aspects. One would be, the retail aspect of our business. We have clinics across the city, some mobile. We've got corporate aspects that we're looking at, and how we manage that is actually quite different than the retail. And then we actually have airport specific. So if you are flying in or out of any of the private terminals, you're being serviced by someone out of our team. How do you manage that in sort of one centralized location, but the decentralized model? We found that through, and where we landed was through a good partnership model with yourselves, with Indicio, and with our booking payment agent. For that, we've been able to bring it together to at least deliver the same form and flavor to every single one of those end users, and have the ability to roll that data up in aggregate to produce public health level type of charts, graphs, so that they understand as well what's going on, how to keep businesses open, keep them safe.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we have a question that came in. I'm going to go ahead and go to it. So the question is, how does governance play a role in the early planning and development of decentralized identity? And I'll add to it, like, what are some of the common pitfalls of complex governance systems? And what are the essential governance requirements in order to get off the ground and get a project started?
I can start there. One of the things around governance, which I think is important, and for those that don't know, some of us here sit on an overarching governance framework, which is the Trust over IP framework that's being built. And really, you want to make sure that you have a common, and that's what Heather talked about as well, a common schema across all platforms, so that each building block can build onto the next one. I think we've all done a good job trying to maintain that governance, and that governance is now being rolled out globally. It's not one or the other. It is a global common framework.
And I'd like to talk about that. When you're starting in the early days, sometimes the complexity of the governances that you see or you read about stall projects. And where we work with organizations, especially around this pilot, is how do we come up with the right governance in order to get to our next step, knowing that we're going to continue to expand and grow and adapt governance as we need. And so what I always say is don't let governance get in the way of your progress today. We can figure out the governance as we move forward.
Yeah, so you actually have just had a press release on a project that you're working on, and I know that that was a key foundation of that project. Can you share a little details on that?
One of the projects that we just rolled out was with CETA, who was working with the government of Aruba, and they trialed a verifiable credential solution that allowed a traveler to share that they were COVID determined by the government to pass the COVID requirements to enter the country, but they were able to share that information with the hospitality and tourism providers on the island in a privacy preserving manner. And the governance that we worked through was absolutely built around the use case. It was discussed amongst the parties. And not only in addition to the written policy, we also built what we call machine readable governance into the actual pilot, because there are two levels of governance. The traditional people think about is the paper PDF DocuSign governance, right? And then there's the governance that you can actually build into the technology. And the most successful governance is the governance that you can move forward with your partners and actually implement.
Oh, that's great. So another question just came in. Okay, so this sounds great, but is all the technology, is everything there to really scale and go mainstream?
Yes, everything is there. What I think you're talking about is the underpinnings of the code is available open source, and that's where Liquid Avatar and Vector are coming in and working with Indicio, because our underpinnings are open source code, and there are various repositories right now in the community that we can point you to. But where the special part of it comes in is putting together the use case and putting together the agents that solve your use case. And that is something that each organization will have to tackle on its own. But if you're saying, is the underpinning technology available today, and can that underpinning technology scale? The answer is yes, it has been tried. I guess, RJ, you'd be the one to pick up on this conversation, because you were very close to this question.
Yeah, I saw the question come up and I wanted to ask it.
I want to think that you wrote that question.
No, it's definitely exciting, and things are moving so fast. Actually, it's moving so fast that the demo that we're going to show you in a few minutes, I actually have to change how I explain one of the slides, because earlier today, I was on the phone with Jay, and they now have tests that they can get results in the next, I think you said 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yeah, 15 minutes, that's correct.
Versus 24 hours. And so, I mean, it's exciting. This stuff is moving so quickly. People from all different areas of the globe are embracing this in order to give individuals the power to actually control and manage their own data and use it where they want to. We're already past the halfway mark. Let me do another quick question here, then we'll go right into the demo. At what stage in development is it important to think about marketing, how to communicate the message of decentralized identity? I think all of us are wrestling with that. Everybody in the industry is wrestling with that. Is it an easy conversation about privacy and security, or is there a learning curve for partners, customers, and participants? How early should we weave in this marketing into the development of your identity solution? And yeah, I know it's
my answer is at the very first idea, when the light bulb goes off your head, you have to start thinking about the marketing and how you convey this story from the very, very beginning, because this isn't just a marketing effort in the traditional sense. You've built the product and now you're going to go out with a launch campaign. You are marketing every single step of the way, because as you mentioned, RJ, you have to educate and help bring your partners along. And that is something that when you're working in your organization, your marketing team should be your best friend from the very, very beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think, not to put words in the CEO of Liquid Avatar's mouth, but that marketing is key, right? We're all involved in that. We're all involved in helping sell our company and selling the ideas.
Mm-hmm. and get support from all of our partners
Mhm.
and our user base and get feedback from them, right? It's customer centric for sure.
Because this is such a new area, your marketing team is also learning with you. And the hardest part, I think, for marketing team is you've built your solution, you've even maybe gone through trial, and then you bring your marketing team in, and now they're having to catch up. And so that's why it's important to bring them through the journey with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's go ahead and I have a few slides that we put together to kind of as a teaser. You got everyone gets a sneak peek of where all three of the panelists, myself and the two panelists, what we're building out and what we'll be releasing. So it's a new way to manage your online identity. And what's interesting here is the first step that we go to is where you're in the vector environment. Where you will go to their interface and you'll set up a reservation to get tested. And then you're prompted to download the Liquid Avatar app. Now, the second step, this is one of the key important pieces, and it's binding your identity to that agent so that you build a high trust assurance level that whoever's using this credential is the person that's supposed to be using that credential. So when they go and register Liquid Avatar, they're going to go ahead and confirm their email address and biometrically secure that digital wallet. So that in the third step, when they either scan from the website or when they go to the lab with the issuer and make a connection to the issuer's agent via QR code or a link, then the lab can do a challenge, and it could be just a facial recognition to say, this is the individual that owns this wallet. And so in the fourth step, once they've made that connection, the lab will offer or provide a credential that's a test ID credential. This is where that changes that I just learned today. Usually it'll take 24 hours in order to get the test results. It can be now in 15 minutes. So in a matter of whether you're still in the office, if you're going to wait, or you walk out to your car, it's the next day, you're at home, you in step 5 will get a message that says, congratulations, right? Results are available.
Absolutely.
This is the key here, right? You look at your results, but the only way that you can do that is if you have the credential, right? The test ID credential. So the lab will verify your trust ID credential. This is all using open standards with W3C, backed up by cryptographic security on blockchain. No PII is on the blockchain, right? And once you can say, yes, I have that ID credential, you can accept the new credential that is the COVID test credential. And then here's where the magic is. Now I can use it anywhere. We went through 7 steps from going to the reservation system, doing an ID verification, taking the test, having a credential that says, yes, I'm the one that took the test, boom, get the results back. And then instead, in this next slide here, now you can use it anywhere. And you can use multiple different types of hardware in order to use that credential. We're starting slow, right? We're going to be a closed environment with the 2 strategic partners we have on the line, but also a few others. Start slow and then scale rapidly and quickly as possible. Now, this next slide, this is so important. All of us, whenever I wire money or I deal with cryptocurrency, I'm nervous that I'm doing it correctly, or that you send pennies to make sure it's going to the right wallet. We understand that. So right away, when you get your first credential from Liquid Avatar, we have a site that you can go to, scan the QR code, and experience what that communication is back and forth to verify who you're connecting with, and then agreeing what you want to share with them and what you don't. You can see the control that you have on your identity at this point. So we're trying to cover all the pieces. This is that marketing piece. How do we educate everybody and move forward? What do you guys think?
Well, I think, what I love about this and what's different from other ways that you can share your COVID test result is, first of all, you get a credential that you've taken a test, and it's awesome that Vector's returning the results in 15 minutes. Some cases that, you may not get it as quickly, but you need to prove that you've taken a test and you have that credential to do it. Then you have the credential that shows the result. But here's what is really, really important is I can take that credential to show that my result was negative to go to work. My employer, let's say, requires that I show that I'm COVID negative to report to work. But Vector doesn't know where I work. They don't know when I went to work. They don't even know I had to prove it because the decentralized identity credential is privacy preserving. It doesn't allow for correlation. So Jay doesn't know if I went to work or not. And lastly, it has consent at every step of the way. So as an individual, I have given consent to receive the credential. I've given consent to share the credential with my employer. And I am the one who has the ability to call the shots on how I share it.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean that's been a big thing, and just for those that are listening, not all our tests come back in 15 minutes, but we do offer that service right now. And as we move to scale up some of our services, moving from nasopharyngeal swabs to our saliva tests, we think that the proliferation of a wallet and a verified credential for ongoing I mean, the biggest thing about certainly around COVID is you're negative right now, but 2 minutes from now you could potentially have some level of exposure. We're building into our trust model. How do you degrade the trust of that credential to a point when now it's no longer valid? And going through ongoing testing, whether it's in our facilities, whether it's one of our on-sites, what have you, and being able to constantly update and get that ping on your wallet to say, hey, my COVID credentials back at 100%. Hey, it's degraded down to around 20%. You need to go for another test. You need to make sure that you're drop another saliva sample in the box on the way out. Those are the things I think that are certainly going to help us call it back to more normal. But it's a great methodology, and you can only do that through, as Heather said, I'm not interested in where you work or what you're using your credential for, whether it's to go on a flight, whether it's to get in the office, whether it's to get into a restaurant. So it's a matter of making you as the individual feel safe and those around you feeling safe as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I think I have time for maybe one more question. And what I really want I want to bring the topic of the future kind of back into this question. And so we're starting off with what I believe is a straightforward, low-hanging fruit use case based on the environment that we have today. As we move forward, what is your opinions? And I understand this is an opinion. No one has a crystal ball. What do you guys think the low-hanging fruit or some of the ideal scenarios are for a decentralized identity that provides this security and the trust layer, along with and someone just popped up, and the privacy? Does anyone who wants to take
Yes, I'll go first. I reset my password 4 times already today on various accounts. So passwordless login. How many times a day do we reset our password? What Verifiable Credentials does is it allows an avenue to move towards passwordless login, which I think would be a great move forward in our digital lives. Very simple concept. Remove the password login, use your verifiable credential instead to log into your account, and no more having to reset your passwords with CAPTCHA and all that. It can't happen fast enough.
Yeah, and I'd say on the physical data side, or from a data limitation perspective, all of the stuff that we're producing and that we've been working with both Indicio and Liquid Avatar on, everything is PHIPAA compliant. So we've gone through the process. It's all stored in PHIPAA compliant methodologies, and I think that's been a big. So not only do you have biometrics to get into your credential, the credential itself is actually stored securely.
Right.
And that's so important because that's done without a direct integration, right? Because you have the verifiable credential and the person who has the record is the one who's transmitting it to the verifier.
Correct.
So one other thing, so a note kind of came in about privacy, right? We touched on it, but let's put a little bit more focus on it and talk about how there's no how it actually secures and helps you control, manage your data, which drives to the privacy level that you want to have personally.
Sure. I mean, we'll take the real life example of walking into a business as an example. You know, when some of our clients that have gone through significant amounts of testing, you know, what are they doing today? Those the employers themselves are getting lists back saying, you know, Heather has been tested and is negative, or RJ has been tested and is negative. I think as you move forward into a secured wallet with a verified credential, all you're doing is walking in and showing your green shield, for example. So, you know, there's no data passing between you and your employer other than you're holding up your phone and going, yeah, in fact, that's mine. Or you can tap your phone on a terminal, and the only thing that's passed is a yes, no. It's not who, it's not what. And so I think that, you know, the security level is actually, it's increased exponentially from where we've been.
And that's because the verification is happening using a distributed ledger. It's not a verification that goes directly into the database of the organization who issued you the credential. And that's an important part and why it's privacy preserving.
Great. Well, thank you. So we're out of time. As everyone can see, we love this space. We love these questions. Please go to liquidavatar.com or any of our other sites, and feel free to reach out to us, contact with us, and ask further questions. We will also have this webinar will be stored on our YouTube channel so that you guys can go back and share it with your friends. Hey, everyone, thank you very much for attending our webinar, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.